All right, you've made it to the last section of this part of the PowerPoint on the political and economic aspects of India. So during the classical era, excuse me. So we saw this map before, but I wanted to draw your attention here again because you can see just how interconnected different, let me find my magic pen. There we go. Different regions are in terms of trade. You've got these incredible sea lanes and also land lanes for trade. Um, so one thing I want to mention here is that we have a lot of innovations in terms of pack animals um, and innovations like the saddle that made things easier to transport. But also in the sea, we have that as well. These different Indian Ocean basin routes were using some really amazing technology that used the monsoon wind patterns. These are wind patterns that seasonally um, blow through the Indian Ocean. So they're kind of controlled by things like this huge plateau and the Himalayas up here. So that really, oh, this is going to make this. There we go. Um, they're this cold kind of air here, and the monsoons are this rainy and dry season. They're pretty amazing winds. So this is a lateen sail, and the lateen sail is important because it harnesses these winds that always blow, this one direction seasonally. So you could get stuff in East Africa and bring it to India and then trade it and then sail back next season. And you could get those goods from the transparent trade routes. So this is the lateen sail in action. Ooh, they're super easy to move around for catching the wind. Yeah. And this ship, by the way, is called a dhow ship. So, what was being traded? Well, first of all, spices, right? Spices like pepper. The Romans loved pepper. Other spices like cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, all kinds of stuff, right? Also, you had rice and wheat being traded out of India and into the Arabian Peninsula. From the Arabian Peninsula to India, they were sending a lot of horses. And from Africa, you had a lot of gold and ivory coming into India. India would take that gold and ivory and send it all the way over into Southeast Asia. From Asia, they were acquiring, of course, silks, and those silks were eventually passed on to the Romans. They were also getting spices from Southeast Asia. India, turns out, has a ton of cotton. The word calico comes, which is used on cotton. It comes from Calcutta. So these cotton goods also were being exchanged. These are the different currencies that were used in those famous empires, which standardizing currency, excuse me, really helped. One other thing that that trade did was it encouraged um, trade and manufacturing encouraged more trans-regional trade. So local trade, manufacturing encourages trans-regional trade. And with that, more jobs come to towns and more traders come to towns, and that grew these towns. You had inns and you had um, traders and you had specialists and artisans and stuff all within these different towns. So that led to some issues with social structure. So first of all, some basics. India is extremely patriarchal. You see that with practices like sati or child marriages, where all the marriages were arranged. So those things may stay the same. Here are those epics that we talked about, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. These epics were about heroism, war, and they were really instructional in Hindu principles, but both of them displayed women as very weak. And that was kind of the ideal woman, was one that wasn't going to question men. Again, that gets back to how patriarchal things were. Now coming to changes. With economic diversification, with the rise of towns, with all of this trade, things started to change. You had the rise of guilds. This word is very important. Jati, okay? A guild in India is known as a jati. These guilds became extremely powerful, especially when political power was limited during that interim period and during the Mauryan period where things weren't as centralized, or Gupta period where things weren't as centralized. They were the ones who were supplying money for education. They were the ones who were controlling the supply of goods, the quantity of goods, taxation. They had a ton of power, so very powerful. Now, most of the people in these guilds weren't Brahmins. They were Vaishyas and Sudras. So, as they were growing extremely wealthy from trade, they were thinking to themselves, hey, Brahmins or priests and Kshatriyas or warriors, we deserve more power. We deserve more say. And that really impacted the religions of this era, which we'll learn about in a separate flipped classroom. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to do the listening check at when you're finished listening.